Today we're going to talk about the incredible story of HIV, a journey that goes from a truly devastating global crisis to, well, the cutting-edge science that's giving us the first real, tangible hope for a cure. It's a story with so much loss for sure, but it's also a story of amazing resilience and scientific triumph. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the sheer scale of the problem. Then we'll jump into the weapons we have in our arsenal right now. We'll also tackle the big question, why is a cure so darn hard? And then the exciting part, the breakthroughs that are showing us a path to finally ending AIDS.
Okay, first things first. To really get why the progress we've made is such a big deal, we have to look back at the human cost. And honestly, the numbers are just staggering. They're almost impossible to wrap your head around. But behind every single number is a real person, a family, a whole community, just turned upside down by this virus.
So get this, since HIV and AIDS first appeared on our radar, about 75 million people have been infected. 75 million. To give you some perspective, that's like the entire population of a country like Germany. It was an epidemic on a scale that literally forced the world to rethink what a global health crisis even means.
And the really heartbreaking part, of those 75 million people, 32 million have died. I mean, this was never just a health crisis. It was something that completely hollowed out entire generations and left a scar on the whole world that we're still feeling today.
And look, we can't get complacent because the fight is absolutely not over. Not by a long shot. Even with all the amazing progress we've made, the virus is still spreading. Just in 2022, there were 1.3 million new infections. That's a huge wake-up call that we still got work to do, and we have to stay vigilant.
So, that's the scale of the problem. The big question is, how do we fight back against something like that? Well, faced with this massive challenge, science has come up with this incredible, multi-layered defense plan that has totally changed the game for both preventing HIV and living with it.
So our modern strategy really comes down to four main pillars. It starts with the basics, right? Simple, effective stuff like behavioral changes. But then you have the heavy hitters, the amazing biomedical tools. We're talking about ART to treat the virus, PrEP to prevent it from ever taking hold, and of course, the ongoing search for that holy grail, a vaccine. Okay, let's talk about RT, antiretroviral therapy, because this is the real cornerstone of our defense. Now, these drugs don't cure HIV, but what they do is suppress the virus, and they do it so well that it becomes undetectable in the body. And that is a total game changer. It means someone with HIV can live a long, perfectly healthy life. But here's the other crucial part. If it's undetectable, it's untransmittable. You can't pass it on. That's the whole idea behind treatment as prevention.
And how well does it work? The results are, well, they're just astounding. In 2022, a whopping 93% of people who are on treatment got their viral load down to suppressed levels. This isn't some small victory. This is the absolute foundation of how we care for people with HIV today, and it's one of our most powerful tools for stopping this epidemic.
And it's not just treatment that's evolving. Prevention is getting a serious high-tech makeover. We're talking about moving past having to take a pill every single day. Now we have long-acting injectables. I mean, check this out. There's a new drug, lenacapavir, that in one trial for women showed 100% efficacy. 100%. And you only need an injection twice a year. Think about how much easier and more accessible that makes prevention. It's just wow.
Okay, so we have these incredible treatments, these amazing new prevention tools, which leads to the obvious question, right? Why isn't there a cure yet? Well, the thing is, HIV is a really, really smart and sneaky virus. Wiping it out completely is one of the biggest biological puzzles we've ever faced.
It really comes down to this, control versus elimination. Think of treatment, or ART, like being a security guard for the virus. It's a lifelong job to keep it locked down and under control. A cure, on the other hand, that's like getting rid of the intruder for good, total elimination, so you don't need the security guard anymore. And as you can imagine, that second option is way, way harder.
So what makes it so tough? Well, HIV is the ultimate master of hide and seek. It doesn't just hang out in your bloodstream where it's easy to find. No, it's much smarter than that. It actually weaves its own genetic code right into our DNA. It creates what scientists call a latent reservoir, which is basically a collection of our own cells that are infected but are just sleeping. They're like these little sleeper agents, totally hidden from our immune system and from the drugs. And as long as they're there, the second you stop treatment, bam, the virus can wake up and come roaring back.
But here's where the story takes a turn. That challenge, that impossible problem,
Scientists are tackling it with some unbelievable creativity. Now, to be clear, we don't have a cure for everyone yet, but there have been a handful of cases, super rare but absolutely revolutionary, that have proved it can be done. HIV can be completely cleared from the human body.
Right now, it's a very, very exclusive club. We're talking just 7 people on the entire planet who are thought to be cured or in what's called long-term remission. Now, each of them got there through a pretty high-risk medical procedure. But every single one of these cases has given us these invaluable clues that are helping us figure out how to do this for everybody.
So let's look at one of these stories. There was a person who was living with both HIV and leukemia. For the cancer, their only option was a stem cell transplant, so they go through with it. Then, years later in 2018, they make this incredibly brave decision to stop taking their HIV meds. And today, more than 5.5 years have gone by and the virus is still gone. It hasn't come back.
So what was the secret sauce here? What made this work? It all came down to a tiny little detail in the donor's genes. See, there's this rare genetic mutation. It's called the CCR5 mutation, and it basically acts like a lock on the door that HIV needs to get into our cells. The thinking for a long time was that a donor needed 2 copies of this mutation to make it work. But here's the plot twist. In this case, the donor only had 1 copy.
And that one little detail, it changes everything. It means that maybe you don't need this perfect, impenetrable genetic armor to achieve a cure. So right away, that opens up the pool of potential donors by a huge amount. But even bigger than that, it gives us so much hope for developing cures that could work for everyone. Things like gene therapies that could basically copy this effect, but without needing a super risky stem cell transplant.
Okay, so how do we take these incredible one-off stories and turn them into the finish line? How do we go from a handful of individual cures to ending the AIDS epidemic for good, for everyone? Well, that's the last piece of the puzzle we're going to look at.
And you know, this isn't just wishful thinking anymore. It's an actual, official global goal. Health organizations around the world have put a date on it. They want to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. It's this powerful combination of all the scientific progress we're making and the political will to actually see it through.
And we're already seeing proof that it's possible. Real wins are happening on the ground. 19 countries have completely stopped mothers from passing HIV to their babies. Think about that. And you've got whole countries, like Botswana and Namibia, that are on track to get rid of the virus entirely. This isn't some far-off future. This is happening as we speak.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, right? We've gone from a crisis that felt hopeless to treatments that have given millions of people their lives back. And now we're seeing the first real concrete proof that a cure is actually possible. The science is moving at an incredible pace. The global will is there. And it all leads us to this one final, really powerful question. Are we going to be the generation that finally ends AIDS? Thanks for watching.